Well, Australia is reeling tonight after two Victoria police officers were murdered in cold blood during a warrant operation in the state's northeast. As you can imagine, this story is dominating headlines around the country and around the world. Just after 10:30 a.m. on Tuesday, a team of 10 officers went to a rural property on Rainer Track at Purapunga. They went there to execute a court-approved search warrant linked to historic child sex abuse allegations. As police approached a dwelling on the property, a gunman opened fire. A 59-year-old detective and a 35-year-old senior constable were killed. A third officer was shot in the leg and airlifted to hospital. Police have launched a massive manhunt for 56-year-old Desi Bird Freeman, a self-declared sovereign citizen. He is considered armed and extremely dangerous, with specialist units, air support, and hundreds of officers scouring rugged terrain around Mount Buffalo. Residents have been told to stay indoors as the search continues. Authorities say Freeman's partner and children made contact with police and presented at a station last night. They are not believed to be with the suspect. Freeman has a documented history of anti-authority, pseudo-legal beliefs, including a prior incident in which he attempted to place a magistrate under citizen's arrest.
Okay, but I arrest you for acting oppressively and when interested and perverting the course of justice. You must stand down. You are now in my custody and under... Does this court obey the law, sir?
Just have a seat.
Does this court obey the law?
Have a seat.
Even just once?
Have a seat.
Now, experts warn these sovereign citizen ideologies reject the legitimacy of police, courts, and government and can escalate to violence. To help us understand the movement, the threat profile, and what can be done to prevent copycat violence, I'm joined by Associate Professor Joe McIntyre, a constitutional law expert. Professor, welcome to McKnight tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's begin with the very basics. What is a sovereign citizen?
So a sovereign citizen is a particular type of this broader movement of pseudo-law. So sovereign citizen movement itself originated in the US in the late 1990s, and some of these ideas spread out through North America and eventually to Australia in the early to mid 2000s. So what's unclear is whether Desi Freeman identifies as a sovereign citizen or as part of the broader sovereign citizen movement, and there's a bit of a distinction there. What we really need to understand, though, is that the broader movement of pseudo-law has a series of beliefs that are essentially that the law can be understood in a way that allows these adherents to avoid their legal obligations and the part of the law they don't like. So in those clips, you've just seen someone using legal language. It looks like they're doing law, but this is legally meaningless, but it's got that appearance of law. And so these people genuinely believe that they have the law on their side, that they are doing the lawful thing, but it allows them to avoid obligations they don't like.
And we see this all the time, don't we? There are so many videos online of these sovereign citizens when they're stopped by police saying, you don't have the authority, I invoke sovereign citizenship. I mean, it doesn't have any legal standing whatsoever, does it?
No, these arguments don't succeed anywhere in the world. There is no legal basis whatsoever, but these people really genuinely believe that it's legally meaningful. So they think they've got access to the real law and that everyone else is misunderstanding it. And again, in that clip, the accused says, have you ever obeyed the law in this court? They think that the law is something that even the judges get wrong. So on one level, that is humorous. We can laugh at it.
And is that what I'm trying to understand here is what is it down to an interpretation of the law, or they don't accept our law? What is their actual point?
Look, this is all often very confused. The core idea is that they think this is what the real law is, and that what we understand of our law has in some ways been corrupted, that at some point the law was corrupted and no longer represents the true law. So whether that's because we're a corporation or because we should be using admiralty law or we should have some common law as a higher authority, some of them believe that we have to have individual consent for every single law and that if we withdraw that consent, we don't have to obey the law anymore. There's this whole grab bag of legal arguments. They all genuinely believe them. They just have no legal meaning.
We have a long way to go in this situation about what investigations will find and exactly what happened. So I say that before I ask my next question. But it's one thing to have these beliefs, but how does it end up as a justification for two dead police officers, as alleged to have been done by this individual? That obviously has to be proven. But is it a case of he believes he has sovereign rights over his property? What gives him in his head, or any people like this, the rights to do that?
So there is that idea that they have some sovereign rights. So you see this with the people that are driving. I'm driving a private vehicle.
Yeah.
I'm traveling in my private vehicle. You've got no right to be there. This is the idea that they've got some irrevocable sovereignty that can't be taken away. And they extend those same beliefs to their own private property, that they can do what they want on their property. That's simply not how our law works. But to a certain mindset, that sounds really appealing. But the problem is, once you start picking and choosing which laws you obey, you start corroding any authority of the law and your own commitment to it. So why do they bother having gun registration? Why do they bother driving with a license if that license has been revoked? But that doesn't matter because, I don't believe in the authority of the state. So we start to see people being really fast and loose with order, and that itself has some inherent threat to, good order in our society, the half step away from violence. We've seen violence like this in the States. We've seen several police murders in the States by these individuals. And we've seen threats in Australia, death threats against judges. We've seen cases of weapons. We've seen violence being quite present in some of these movements.
How big is the sovereign citizen footprint in Australia compared to, say, the US, and has it grown post-pandemic?
So we actually don't know. One of the problem is, how do we define the movement? Is it just pseudo law, sovereign citizen? Is it the broader pseudo law movement? We just don't know. We've tracked in court cases. We've seen a massive growth in South Australia, for example, over 100 reported cases alone in the last couple of years. Really significant growth in our courts, and absolutely explosive growth post-COVID. That seems to have been a real radicalizing event for a lot of people.
That's an interesting correlation. Do these ideologies specifically prime followers to see police as illegitimate in a way, and therefore as targets?
Look, pseudo-law beliefs cross the political spectrum from far left to far right. There's people right in the middle who are not particularly radicalized in that violent sense, but just see the law or certain aspects of it as illegitimate. But we certainly see quite a common theme is that police are an object of derision. This is a visible point in which state authority is being exercised. And if you're suspicious about the authority of the state, is really an easy step to see that the police are a target of your ire.
So what is it about sovereign citizenship that appeals to these people? If you saw this guy on a current affair, Channel 9 played clips from a current affair. I went back and watched the original story, and he wasn't in it that much, but he seems like a normal guy. He seems like your next door neighbor who was having an issue with his neighbors. He seemed like a normal guy. How is this movement penetrating people? Why is it appealing to them?
Sure. So I think what we see is it's been spread a lot through social media. A lot of it was spread, as I said, through COVID. There was some super spreader events like the Convoy to Canberra, where these people all came together and these ideas were shared and then went back to the regions. Why is it attractive to people? Well, most people want to believe that they're good people. They want to believe that they are law-abiding, that they are good citizens, they are good members of society. So we want to be good people, but we want to avoid obligations that we don't like. I don't want to get the jab. I don't want to wear a mask. I don't want to pay my taxes because I don't think it's legitimate. Pseudo-law offers this false promise, but this magical promise that I can be a good citizen and choose which laws I obey. So if I invoke the right legal spell, I can avoid obligations I don't like. That's a really beguiling, powerful concept. So you get people who, in their mind, are good citizens, are doing the good thing, but now I don't have to pay the tax that I don't want to. I don't have to obey the laws that I don't want to. So I think we can see that that's the mix that becomes really dangerous here.
It's fascinating stuff. And obviously, the events of the last 24 to 48 hours have brought this into the spotlight, this movement. Associate Professor Joe McIntyre, thank you so much for joining us on McKnight tonight.
My pleasure.
Fun, insightful interviews from a washed-up producer with nothing to lose.